Hi, everyone, and welcome to First Wednesday. You can see I'm already having trouble with my notes here sticking up on the page, so I'll just hold it. I'm Rick Ganelli. I am the Director of Music Administration Outreach, and my partner, Gary Markham, the Grand Poobah, who is the Executive Director of the Music Administration Collaborative. And we're really excited to have a great presentation for you here tonight. Our own Dr. Tim will be interviewing Mr. Robert Floyd, who is the Executive Director of the Texas Music Educators Association. I've known Bob for 30 years, and he is a huge advocate for fine arts, not just music, but fine arts in general for the programs in Texas. A couple of weeks ago, he did a presentation that Tim and I happened to watch, and Tim and I got together and we thought, you know, this would be good for everybody to see. There are things that Bob will talk to you about that you can do in your home state and your own communities that I think would be very, very beneficial for you to know. You have to know this man is so well connected at the state level. He rubs elbows with legislators and policymakers. And I can remember distinctly the year that I was the president of the Texas Music Administrators Group. We were meeting in Austin at a hotel. It was late at night. It was about 10 o'clock. Everybody had kind of wound down for the evening. We were just having some drinks in the lounge, and my phone rings, and it's Bob, and he says, "Mr. President, you need to round up the troops. We need you at the Capitol in the morning." And so we gathered everybody up, and the next morning we followed his lead and talked to legislators about the importance of fine arts in Texas. So we could not do this without him. And I just want to thank you, Bob, first of all, for agreeing to be with us. And Tim, I'll leave it to you to pull out all the good information.
All right, good. Yeah, let me echo Rick's thoughts too. Yeah, Mr. Floyd, we're so glad you're here. Real quickly, because he won't say this, and this for all of you people that are 40 or younger. A few years ago, Bobby Floyd and I were having dinner, and afterwards we jumped in his car and he turns on the sound system, and I'm like, God, what college band is that? Or is that the Marine band? He goes, "That's my high school band." I'm like, no, come on, really, who is it? He goes, "No, it's my high school band." So I think a lot of people don't know that he's a premier band director too. And wow. In fact, I think I asked you for a copy of that because I was going to share it with my college kids going, you see what is possible? And I know we're going to get a lot of reinforcement about how important relationships are. And the truth is that we're here tonight because of great friendships all the way around. So, Mr. Floyd, would you please tell us what is going on in Austin, Texas?
Well, snow's finally melted and we finally have electricity and water, and maybe by tomorrow I will have hot water. So, but anyway, but now the sun's shining and it's 72 degrees. So that's Texas for you. So, well, good news or bad news, however you want to take it, but our legislature is in town and they meet 140 days every other year, whether they need to or not. And usually our thoughts are they don't need to, because many times when they come to town, there are challenges, of course. We all know how that is in our respective states, but it is a challenging time right now, as it always is. I will say that I'm the luckiest guy on the planet, because in the role that I play at TMEA, the leaderships that's preceded me, I get a lot of compliments from guys like Tim and Rick, and it's always overstated. But I will say the success that we've had in Texas really started way before me in terms of the role that we play in the political arena. And all the way back to 1978 in Texas, our leadership at TMEA decided if you really want to be successful in serving your students in your local communities and districts and campuses, that you had to be protected in state law and in State Board of Education rule. And again, that happened before I came. But but it's been a path that served us well. We've right now are protected better in law and rural than we ever have been, and I went all the way from K all the way up through 12th grade. But there are always challenges, as we all know, and you can't ever assume that we're good, nothing's going to happen to us. No politician is even considers going after fine arts and purposely, but that's political suicide. But they know that, and we know that we can get caught in the backwash of some other meaningful legislation. We may talk about that a little bit as we move forward. But at any rate, we're set for a session that's could be real challenging. There have already been bills filed that could minimize students' opportunities to be a part of our music programs. And so we're gearing up for that. And so we'll see where it leads us. And in a few minutes, I'll talk to you about our new campaign, we're calling it.
You actually have lobbyists for the arts, right, that are at the Capitol all the time, yes?
We do. When I said I'm the luckiest guy on the planet, I'm fortunate to work for TMEA. I do have a full-time staff of 9 people. We're fortunate to have enough money to function. And yes, we do have 2 very part-time lobbyists that I work with, one of which I've worked with since 2005. And they are my partners at the Capitol, and all of us who play a role in telling our story and selling our message to the decision makers. So it is true.
You once said to me when you were talking about, and I know it's different in Texas, and we're going to talk about that a little bit too. But you once said that you went in, you were talking to one of the senators or so forth, and you said it was 95% chit chat and 5% business.
Yeah, exactly. Because it's just like everything else we do. It's about the relationships you build. It's not rocket science, is it? And that's the most important thing. And I've been so fortunate. I've been at TMEA a lot of years, 28, and I have had the opportunity then to build relationships at the Capitol. There are always frustrations, of course, in any political structure in any state, that the turnover can be very substantive. And for example, I think the statistic, we have 150 members of the House of Representatives. We have 31 senators, and of those 150 representatives, I think 110 of them, this will be their 3rd session or less. Wow. So it's that continual education, telling your story, building the relationships that ultimately pay off, hopefully in the end.
And Texas is different. There's no question about that. So I'm a fine arts supervisor from somewhere a long way from there, and I'm going, well, yeah, sure, of course, you got 9 on your staff and you got lobbyists and everything. How does that translate, and what do I need to do?
That's a great and a loaded question. How much time do I have?
There you go.
I wish I had the magic answer for that question, because I get it. And you'll say, no, you don't really get it. But to the best that I can appreciate, we're very fortunate in Texas. And I'm very fortunate to be able to do the things I just said. I would say the first of all, if you're on this call, on this Zoom today, that tells me that there's a reason you're here. And number one, hopefully will be that you understand the necessity of being supported by law and rule in your state. It also shows that if you're here, you're going to have to be the person or persons that are willing to put your toe in the water, if you will, and begin to take that step. Social media is a blessing and a curse, as we all know. but at least we have the opportunity to begin those discussions when you're only the only band director in one community and the others are scattered all over the state. But somehow through networking and social media, meeting with your MEA officers and what have you, it can be done. It really can. And so hopefully we can talk a little bit more about that as we move forward.
I mean, the whole game is communication, right? In some fashion. And even though you may not have a bulldozer, you still have a car, you've got a vehicle to get there. And again, the people that are on this call, obviously, you're already the front runners. So there's a way to make the adaptation from Texas to we're doing it over here. Yes?
I think there is, Tim. And again, the more communication as you can do, and the more people you can get engaged and help them understand that importance, then I think there are things you can do. And certainly social media can play a role in that. But I don't think, for example, that you have to have lobbyists to I will tell you one of the things that I think when you say, we don't even have a full-time executive director for our state association. You can't expect him or her to be able to do those things. And that's when you really have to be creative, though, and reach out. And I think an untapped resource out there are retired members who have a passion still for music education, who still have certainly skill set and technology savvy enough. One of the things that's really changed through the years, one of the first workshops I ever went to when I came to TMEA was how to lobby. And I'll always remember, it stuck with me forever, and that legislation is decided by those who show up. And I'll tell you that 25 years ago, that was the way it was. But what's different now is I think we can also say, or get involved, because technology, and I would say it's in every state. Right. You don't have to be at the Capitol at 1 a.m. I testified one time at 1:30 a.m. I've spent a lot of hours in the Capitol, but everything that goes on in your state capitol now, or even state board of education, that can impact you, you have that resource sitting right in front of you on your computer screen. And I wouldn't even go into, every hearing is recorded. The 8,000 bills are there in Texas. There'll be 8,000 bills filed. You can go in and say, okay, here's 100 categories of education bills. Here are the ones I want to track, because these could be a problem for us, whether it's on curriculum or graduation or whatever it could be, or CTE, which we may talk about a little later, which is always a struggle here in Texas. And then just like so much of technology, you'll get reports, you'll get dinged, you'll know exactly when there are 48 steps to pass a bill, and you'll get a report every step of the way, a text, an email. So I say all that to say you can monitor so much better now. If you have people that can devote some time to that, I'm telling you, really smart kids that might have interest in politics in your programs could even help with that. But there are ways that it can be done. And one thing you'll learn, let me say one more thing, Tim, and you've got more friends in your state house than you think you do. We'll come back to that in a minute.
I've heard you say this, and this is something that everybody has. When you said, today we're having a mariachi group go in, or we're having the string, and you always have students there. Anybody can do that, right?
Yeah, absolutely. It's a critical point. For the next 2 or 3 months, now during COVID times, access to our capital is limited. When we talk about our little campaign, I'll mention that a little bit more. But in the fall, in our magazine, I always print how to be able to perform at the Capitol during the session. You gotta be sponsored by a senator or House member, and but that's really about. And then you have to book it through the Preservation Board. But I can't tell you how many times that I've walked into the Capitol 10 or 11 o'clock in the morning, and I hear music, and I go, "Wow!" So I walk up to the rotunda, which is a magnificent place to play, by the way, or sing. And there will be a mariachi band, there will be an orchestra, there'll be a choir, there'll be a jazz group. And I walk in, I didn't know they were there. I didn't set it up. I did tell them back in the fall, and I've encouraged it, but I'm telling you, it's a great advocacy tool. And you walk into that rotunda and it changes the whole mood of the Capitol, where everybody's on such a mission, and there'll be lobbyists. And who really loves it are the politicians. If they have a music ensemble performing from their community, they're there. It's a photo op. It's good PR for them back home. So they're all over it. So you can also do concerts on the south steps of the Capitol, and I'm sure you can do that in most states, starting at 12 to 1 in the rotunda and 1 to all afternoon. A lot of groups are vying for those slots, not just music, of course, but pretty much in the rotunda, it's music. It's great.
Every time I talk to one of the politicians, say, "Hey, do you know who played?" I mean, they hook onto that. And if it's from their area, then they're the champs. This next question, I think, is maybe a soft pitch. I looked up the other day the benefits of arts education. I Googled it. Yeah. Bobby, there was 1,130,000,000 hits. You know what I'm talking about? There's so much information. So whose job is this to take this and run with it?
Yeah, that's a great question as well. And I'll talk a little bit more when we talk about the campaign in just a second. Yep. But it is everybody's responsibility. And that's also can be one of the challenges, because you know how our teachers are. They're dedicated and committed. They're already working 12, 14 hours a day. I don't have time to send an email. I don't have time to send a note, because their focus is on what? Music and student. And so getting that message out there, though, of continuing to drive the message home of the importance of being protected, again, I'll say it again, in state law and rule is critical to you being able to serve the students back in your community in the way that you want to be able to serve them. And right now, we get to the campaign in a second, but this different strategy we have utilized is, y'all know more than me. I'm sure a lot of you that are on the call are teachers now, but the last thing we wanted to have happen to our teachers in Texas is, in spite of everything, in light of everything else they're dealing with now and starting the next school year and the challenges they're going to face there, we don't want them to have to deal with one more hindrance or something that could stand in the way of them serving their students because of some bill that passes in the Capitol in the next 90 days. So we'll talk a little bit more about that.
Well, I want you to talk about the project, the campaign that you have, in the sense that, I mean, when you unfolded it, and when you were on with Joe and all those people the other night at the TMAC thing, and I'm going, well, anybody could do this. I mean, it's not like there's some magic unknown. It's just doing it. So tell us a little bit about it, because it is really exciting.
Well, like I just said, so because of the pandemic, and really, and we initially started talking about this campaign approach, which I'll define in just a second, because we didn't even know if we'd have access to the Capitol or not. Initially, it wasn't until December 22nd that our governor finally opened things up that the Capitol could be available during the session. And then he turned around to the Senate, to the Lieutenant Governor and the Speaker of the House and said, set your own rules. Then they turned around to their members and said, set your own rules. If you walk in the Capitol today, you can get in, but you might want to see a representative, and his or her policy is, we don't want, you can talk to us via Zoom. And then you have others, come on in, you don't have to wear a mask. Sure, you've seen what our governor just did, your opinion of that. But at any rate, but we were fearful we weren't going to be able to walk the halls like we've accustomed to, and making those personal relationships and being able to tell our story face to face with staffers, who I'll come back to in a minute, and our members. So the alternative to that end is, and it's the most important of all, it's the most effective lobby that anybody has, including us. It's not so much Matt and Julia and I in the halls of the Capitol. It's back home in the legislative district. And so our message has been thus far to our members, first and foremost, start telling your story now back home, and make sure your school district, your community, your legislators are beginning to know, are hearing from you back home. So we designed this whole campaign around maybe not every being able to get in the Capitol. And so we are providing the tools and the opportunity and the communication, emails and digital postcards. And I'll talk a little bit more on that as we move forward. And so we have never launched as a concerted effort to get our teachers, parents of our students. There's 1.9 million students in a fine arts classroom in Texas this past year. It's not that much, sadly, right now because of the COVID, but, and that's grades 6 through 12. That's secondary school. So, and realistically, not every parent out there is going to, passionate and fight the fight with us, but a heck of a lot of them are, and a lot of them are going to be music and orchestra and choir parents. And so even tomorrow night, we're partnering in this effort with the Texas Music Administrators Conference, who are the people who serve as fine arts directors in 230 school districts across the state. And you say, well, you've got 1,100 school districts, not that you would know that, but that's not that many. Well, guess what? They represent over 5 million students, because fine arts directors are pretty much, and of course, in the larger districts. So, if Rania, if you want to pull up the slide, the first picture, and I don't know if I'll see that or not, so I'm not. So here it comes. Thank you very much. So here's the difference. We've had an arts coalition in Texas for years. We have all kinds of arts associations, of course. But we chose to go a different route, and this was really the brainchild of Matt Matthews, our lobbyist, who is well-schooled in running political campaigns for candidates. A campaign speaks and denotes action. It denotes a goal, a mission. If you're running in a political campaign, your goal is to elect your candidate. If you're running a campaign on preserving fine arts in Texas schools, then it's pretty clear what we're there for. And so I'll give you the website to this. You might want to dig around. We're building this campaign as we're flying it. And so it's sort of a work in progress, but hurriedly, let's just quickly flip. So here's the homepage, a short mission, a purpose, who we are. It's not just TMAC and us. We're pulling and growing like mad with other arts organizations across the state. You want to jump to the next one, Rania? our goal first was to tell our story. Our second goal right now is to build our database. I'd love it if by next week we could have 10,000 in the database. We're not there yet. Tomorrow night, TMAC, the Fine Arts Administrators, are hosting a Zoom, short, but they have promoted, they are on fire for this project. We're so thankful for them. And they're hosting a Zoom of Booster Club presidents across the state. And they have gotten that word out. I mean, we didn't have no idea how many are going to show up, but I think it's going to be a lot. Mm-hmm. They're going to be the next key to really let this thing explode. Right now, it's mostly teachers. And again, we've partnered with music, art, theater, and dance organizations in the state. This is just an example. It's a press release when we announced the site and what we're going to do. It went out to 700 media outlets across radio, television, every newspaper in every small town, all the way up to Dallas and Houston and all points beyond. The next one. This will just sort of give you a taste of this. And let me give you the website while I'm looking at TXARTS Ed, texartsed.org. So you can dig around it. This past week, we already partnered with a member of the House of Representatives who has filed a bill to do a task force study to move fine arts up into what we call in Texas the foundation curriculum, math, science, English, and social studies. We've debated this. We have filed one bill one time, but we've learned a lot. Lots of times you file bills, you're not going to necessarily pass it, but it gets you the opportunity to tell your story one more time in front of a committee, in front of the press. And this is a step that won't happen. We can pass this bill. I'm confident we can pass this bill. And then it's going to give us between now and the next session to pull a defined task force together to truly build our message about why we should be in the foundation curriculum. And then usually out of every task force that the legislature passes comes legislation the next session. So that's sort of a long-term goal, but it's already moving. He let us, Representative Busey's a huge arts guy, and gave us the opportunity to release it. I think it was Wednesday last week.
One thing that becomes clear, I mean, and not to minimize this, but it's about votes for those people when it comes right down to it, yes?
Well, it does. And again, while we're pulling up the next slide, our next step, actually we'll show you the slide. First of all, we're trying to do everything and make it so easy for anyone to join our effort. So this is what went out to every TMEA member last Wednesday. Register your support for fine arts education. All they had to do was click on the link, go online, send in their information. We can move on to and I've created one of these. I say with my staff, we've created one of these for the art educators. We've created one for the dance association. We've created one for drama and theater, thespian association is what it's called. And so, and then they can send it out under their president's name and not mine. It'll be gone. And I will tell you that we've carried all the arts, and it's another great point. Our forefathers in TMEA made the decision years ago, their strength in uniting the arts together. Mm-hmm. The Texas Education Code has 1,600 pages of law that govern public education in Texas. The word music, education, or music is not in it. what's in it is fine arts. Then the elected body, 15-member State Board of Education defines fine arts as music, visual arts, theater, and dance.
Mhm.
And I will tell you, I'm a firm believer in that approach. And I could tell you countless stories about it wasn't necessarily a music person whose children or they were had some kind of amazing positive experience in music. We've had a couple in musical theater. It's just all over the map. And so it's worked for us. And I would strongly encourage, as if you're gonna dip your toe in the water in terms of trying to approach some kind of program and create a crusade of any kind, that you reach out to all the arts education disciplines and bring them in as partners. So the next slide, or the next.
It just gives you more clout, right? I mean.
Yes. Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
You know, and again, I wish you could tell, I'll tell one very short one, but I remember talking to a band director out in East Texas about another issue. And I said, hey, did you know that the chairman of the State Board of Education just appointed is from your town? And he said, really, what's his name? So I told him his name, and he said, oh, he lives around the corner from me. We walk our dogs together. This is a whole new area I've sort of stepped into. But if we could have, and then when I said earlier on, you've got more friends out there than you think you do. When you step into the Capitol between staffers, that's where it's huge. I don't know how many staffers work in the Capitol, 1,000 plus. You walk in their office, I want to speak to the representative's education person. Out walks a 22-year-old child. They listen to my spiel, and you finish and they go, oh, I was in Bobby Douglas's choir at LD Bell. Oh, I played trumpet in Kerry Taylor's band in Westlake. Oh, you know, I play trombone in Charles Snell's Permian High School band in Odessa. It goes on and on. But think about it. You know, these are bright young kids, and we serve every child in our music programs across this country. But those kids are in most cases been involved in some kind of arts program. You know, I was in every theater production. I had that story from a senator, not a staffer. He said, what do you need?
Yeah.
Vice chair of the House Public Education Committee is an electronic music composer, and it never ends. So at any rate, there's a lot of support out there, and that identify is sometimes a challenge, but it's an important part. So here's the final one I wanted to show you. You say, well, so far all you've been doing is trying to build a database, and we've done that. And we're still working on it. We're pushing like mad on it. Starting next week, now we're going to start our proactive approach. And if you can see this and read it, all it is a thank you. It's not asking for something. It's not asking them to kill a bill. It's not nothing but here's the history. In case you're new, the legislature has made fine arts a priority through the years. And so, and then when we have to come back in a month and maybe try to kill a couple of bills, then it won't be the first time they've heard from us.
Right.
So.
There's a question here, Bobby, that from our friend Michael Stone. You know Michael in California. It says, Mr. Floyd, we have a lobbyist hired by CMEA, California Music Educator Association, several years ago, and that has been quite effective for our work in Sacramento. My question is, what type of activities do you assign to your lobbyists to build relationships with new legislatures?
That's a great question, and I don't assign them to do that. Remember, we pay our lobbyists a pittance, but they have 8 or 9 other clients that are paying them a heck of a lot more money than we do. Mm-hmm. That's an important point is as you build relationships at the Capitol and you get to the point you want to file a bill or take some kind of action, find someone who believes in your cause. And lobbyists, same way. Lobbyists will take your money for push any kind of agenda, but I have never worked with a lobbyist that hadn't convinced me that they're passionate about what we do, and that's always proven out. So back to the question, I don't know that I've ever assigned them. You know, that we're going to try to build those relationships with our members and parents of our students back home. That's our goal right now. And there's another part to this. When they get that thank you next week, hopefully, staffers at the Capitol, that when they start getting communiques and communication, they treat them differently. But the ones that come in from their legislative district go in this stack. They're in Houston and they get one from Amarillo, and not so much. They'll put it in this stack. So they're going to, everything that we send out, 100% of what we send out, and our members follow through with us and send these out, it's going to be from a voter in their backyard. Yeah. So it's not just everybody helter-skelter send something to everybody. If we have a real crisis and are trying to fill something that's really going to be detrimental and we need to take strong action, we might do that. But this is really the key. And that's why it's so important that our members, and when the people have signed up with this, again, my brilliant staff, but when our members sign up for this, it's going to be so easy. It's already going to identify their representative, their senator. It's already going to be addressed to their email. I mean, they're literally going to have to click about 2 things and out it'll go. And I know that's, again, I'm the luckiest guy on the planet. But it's taking the technology of it a little further without having to pay huge amounts of money. You can hire companies to do all that stuff and track it. This will even tell us if it was opened, or that it was received. Yeah. So at any rate, so that's our approach on our campaign, and stay tuned. Again, I'm more excited about this than practically any advocacy effort we've made at the Capitol or lobbying effort in a long time.
Right. Rick, and you can probably jump in here, or somebody, everybody can access these, what's been on the screen. Yes, is that?
Absolutely. Yeah, this is all being recorded and it'll be available. We'll talk about that. Before we do some housekeeping things though, Bobby, we did have one other question. Is there a differentiation with the elementary programs and the secondary programs? We have a disconnect in our district in arts education versus performing arts. Any suggestions on how to unite?
Of course, that's a great question too. In so many of those decisions, Texas is such an independent state. Not only do we not want the feds messing with us, school districts want their own independence as well. Even we always laugh about the legislature. We believe in local control, except when we don't believe But, oh, by the way, here's 1,700 pages of law that you have to follow in your school district. But we believe in local control. You know how that works. But decision, and all curriculum decisions are local decisions. So in terms of how you incorporate and how you align curriculum and all of those things, I was a band director for a lot of years, but I was too stupid as a young teacher, I think, to recognize what was happening in the elementary music classroom and how, oh, gosh, those kids came into my elementary band class and could read music. I wonder where they learned that. I'm a fan of elementary music programs. We do a ton of support. We've given more grant money to elementary teachers from TMEA. And music, art, and theater, standards-based, is required to be taught in grades K through 5 in Texas. We pushed hard for that, and we're able to pass that. Grades 6 through 8, every student must take one standards-based fine arts course. Hopefully you get them into fine arts in 6th grade and you can keep them, of course. Every student who graduates from high school must earn 1 credit of a standards-based fine arts course. That's perhaps pretty common, I guess, around the country. I don't even know how what I just said compares to other states, but and we do everything we can to support elementary, but I'm telling you, it's tough right now. Our commissioner yesterday made the comment that kids in Texas our students are in elementary are 3.5 months behind in reading and math. And we all know that there's going to be such a knee-jerk reaction, it's probably not the right term, about how are we going to make up for the loss in academic training and skills. And our principals and superintendents going to react. We passed a bill, it's been 12 years ago now, because we had a horrific problem in Texas of pulling students out of our classrooms to do remediation for the state assessment. And I think that's a universal problem around the country. It's not foolproof, but it's something in law that's pretty strong to limit that. But and instructional minutes, that's a local decision in everything in Texas. So elementary's tough, and but that's why I have such an admiration and passion. But school districts, at least by law, there are always loopholes, but they can break the law if they choose to and abuse kids.
We have put, for everybody that's listening, you can see the link that's up there that will get you access to all this. And I'm milking for time here because I really want this next one. Everything you've talked about comes back to there's got to be some elbow grease underneath this. And I know that sounds so silly, but just to think that somebody's going to fly over and put dust on it, that's not going to happen, right?
Yeah, and that's the tough part, Tim. Again, I'm so fortunate. I've talked about some things. Yeah, we've got to have buy-in from everybody. And as I mentioned earlier, and I was the same way as a young teacher for sure. I didn't recognize and I hear it now. Well, that's Floyd's job. He'll take care of the Capitol. Yeah, right. That's why we somehow have to pull our teachers together and our members together and our parents together, and stay tuned on this. Not that this is some kind of amazing new strategy for what we're doing now, but again, we're trying to just take it to another level that we never have, and we're being able to do that because we have TMAC on the team with us, and then think how many teachers they have, and I'm telling you, they're on fire, and I appreciate them so much because not just our teachers, more importantly, our students are going to benefit from this. But we've got a couple of tough bills coming. One of which I mentioned earlier, career and technical education. We've had a fine arts graduation requirement in Texas for 30 some odd years. There's one bill that would allow simple word change, fine arts or CTE graduation requirement.
Or
in essence, you're saying there's no longer a fine arts requirement. So, initially you say, well, a politician who believes in that can go, well, they can still play in the band. They can still play in the orchestra. Yeah, they can. It's way beyond that, as we all know. It's the message of why the arts and music are important for every child. And so anyway, excuse me for looking down at my notes, but I'm trying to think I've written down a lot of things about the whole communication side. And one thing I will tell you that's helped us through the years has simply been that, again, this is by years of being there, but legislators, people at the Capitol even still, they don't know how big we are and they don't want to find out. And I've literally had decision makers tell me that, and including in the lieutenant governor's office. And so when we redid our graduation requirements, 2013, and created what we call endorsements for students. I hate to use the pathways word because it's really not that. And they came to us and said, will you support this if we will create an arts and humanities endorsement? We said, yeah, but that's not the concern. The concern is the students who are going to do a CTE pathway, the students who are going to do STEM, the students who are going to pursue multidisciplinary studies. Those students, we also want to have access. So the electives have got to be protected for the students to be able to do that. It's that. And so they said, okay. And so we worked 5 months with the State Board of Education to write the rules to implement that rule. And they came out great. But we don't always win. but we've been really fortunate. But again, legislation and decisions are made by those who either show up or get involved. And I don't know how else to do it beyond just selling that message. And we've got to take, as educators, music educators, arts educators, that responsibility and to make that happen. And so I wish I had the magic dust to sprinkle, but it truly can be done. And I want to go back to you've got more support. Legislators want to do the right thing. Yeah. Excuse me for flipping the page here, but legislators are just like, they work, just a few notes I'd written. I was very intimidated at the Capitol my first 2 or 3 sessions. But they work for us. Don't be intimidated by them. They're real people too. They're your neighbor. They've got kids. They're candidates and they're legislators, but many of them are arts supporters. You just don't know it yet. And so figuring out how to communicate with them too is important. Whether it's social media, whether it's email, with the Capitol, you say, well, how do you really get their attention? And we're going to offer a lot of different ways. This digital postcard thing is something new for us. Emails, of course, yes, they work. Phone calls, notes are even better, personal notes. But again, if it comes from a constituent, it's golden, And so, and I'm going to go back and say, especially in the heat of an April and May for us, when things are getting so hot and heavy, even more important than getting to legislators in the crunch times, it's their staffs.
Mhm.
You've got to build relationships with staffs.
Mhm.
Because you may not be able to get to it. Senators are harder than House members. But another thing that we do at the Capitol, and this will be the 6th session, and this is an easy one to do. I say easy, but we've created what we call an arts education caucus. You know, you have caucuses for all kinds of special interests within the Capitol, you know, but so we select a highly respected member of the Senate and a highly respected member of the House. The last 2 sessions, the chair of the House Public Education Committee chaired the Arts Education Caucus.
Mm.
So, and then we don't ask them to do anything. We create a really beautiful front and back document that goes out to all 150 House members and the Senate, 31 senators, just asking them to sign up. It's distributed through the Capitol. They tear off the bottom, it's perforated. They turn it into their chair in the Senate or the House. And then we use that also as a tool to share advocacy materials so that co-chair can circulate materials under their address in the Capitol free, in the Capitol mail system. And so again, it's just another way to tell our story.
So persistence alone is omnipotent.
Yes.
You just don't, you give up giving up. Yeah.
Yeah. You don't give up. And as you know, 8,000 bills are filed this session. Maybe 1,500 of them will make it all the way through. But a bill dying that you think would be detrimental to students being a part of our programs throughout, let's say, high school, that's not the end of it. Because you've got to be relentless, because when a bill dies, and we do it too, if you have a bill that didn't make it, then you start finding another vehicle and you try to amend it onto somebody else's bill. It's crazy in a sick kind of way. It's sort of fun, but it's crazy how it can work. Or the parliamentarian has to say, no, it's not germane. And then you have to go to the chair, the author of the bill, and bills that filed in the Senate and the House. It's not just enough to push them through the Senate and push them through the House. They have to, if they pass, they have to flip across the aisle. And that's why it takes right at 50 steps, and any one step would kill the bill. I mean, that's a whole nother discussion I didn't mean to get into, because I know listeners on the call, they're just trying to figure out how to get started, and I get that. But there's a lot to, they always compare it to passing legislations like making sausage. It's probably just as ugly sometimes. But again, you've got friends there. You just start and see. I always get frustrated because I would reach out to our friends, or our members, excuse me. I'd reach out to our members and say, hey, let me know. You think about 150, I mean, Texas is a big state, 150 representatives out there, but I don't know, 600,000 or 700,000 music students out there in secondary school. The relationships are there. They really are. Oh yeah, he's in my Sunday school class. Oh yeah, our kids are on the same soccer team. Oh, my daughter's in choir with his son, and it's deep. I'm just telling you, and figuring out ways to utilize. And a lot of that's, I'm talking music here, but it's attributable to the amazing programs we've had in this state for so many years that has touched so many kids' lives. And that those people are embedded in every walk of life in this state, in your state too. So, you just gotta get out there and give it your best shot. We all know, and I know we're out of time, the greatest advocacy tool we have, though, setting state policy aside, is y'all all know this, but a program back home, a program that's valued by students, by parents, by your administration, by your school board, maybe most importantly, by your community. You know, and it's hard to cut a program, not that it doesn't happen, but it's hard to cut a program that's truly touching kids' lives like our programs do. And we got to keep sharing that. We had a committee just 2 sessions ago, Commission on Public School Finance. And the chairman of that committee, etched in my mind forever, we got to be careful what we do in this committee, that it doesn't negatively impact a program that is already serving students in a meaningful way. And that's so true. And that's another part of our message. Wait a minute. You know, and certainly right now, as we all know, we're the answer.
Yep.
Music and the arts, education, classrooms are the answer, where kids feel safe, where they feel accepted. And you know, I mean, I'm preaching to the choir here. I didn't mean to be doing that, but we are the answer right now. And it's more important than ever that our programs, when we come down on the other side of this, are truly going to be the programs that really matter. As we all say, maybe not too many kids have been missing their math teacher, but they miss their music educator. I can say that about math because I have a math degree, but it's true, isn't it? So.
Bobby, I mean, we could go on for 2, 3, 4 hours. Hey, Mary, how are you? Shout out to there. And Pat, we got in the side here. I'm going to pass it back to Rick. But before I do, again, thank you, dearest friend, Bobby. You know, I love you. You're a dear brother. And I would argue with you about one thing. Texas does have some magic dust. And it's in the shape of the leadership of TMEA. So just keep doing it and setting the bar really high for all of us, because it's making a difference. Rick, it's all yours, my friend. Thanks.
Yes, thank you so much, both of you. You know, not everybody has a Bob Floyd in their pocket, but like Chris Barber put in the chat, you know, those legislators do know when you contact them, whether, you know, you may not get them individually or personally, but they know that you've made contact. So don't underestimate the power that is just to start there. And the other thing, and I know Bob could attest to this, like he said, he was nervous the first time he went to the Capitol, but he just didn't become this great legislative guru, overnight. It took years of, I'm sure, stepping in potholes and, okay, we're not going to do that again, or to go this way. So the most important thing is start, right? Just start, do what you can in your area. And I know that he would be obviously very welcome to be a resource for those of you that are trying to move forward in here. Just a little bit of housekeeping, because we are out of time. Next month on April 7th, for our first Wednesday, Gary Markham is going to be our guest. And Gary has developed fabulous programs as a fine arts administrator in Cobb County. And we're going to kind of grill him a little bit about some of the secret sauce that he used to run his programs in his district. Then on May 5th, I'm happy to announce that Colonel Lowell Graham just accepted an invitation. He was the commander and conductor of the U.S. Air Force Band, and he's going to talk to us. This is my title. I said, Colonel, we want you to talk about leading during stressful times. And haven't we all had to lead here now during these last 12 months of COVID? So he's going to visit with us about that. Conn-Selmer Institute Connect is going to be virtual this year. It's June 14th through the 17th. So save the date. The 15th is going to be our Music Administration Collaborative Day. And we've got a lot of great stuff prepared for you for that day as well. Very important. I want you to look, and I'm gonna copy and drop this into the chat too. all these dates so you can copy and paste. We just started a new Facebook page. We had used a LinkedIn page, but we have so many other groups at Conn-Selmer doing a Facebook page. So I want to invite you to go to that website there at the bottom and join us on our Music Administration Collaborative Facebook page. And more importantly, we want to hear from you. We know that there are other really great things happening around the country. We've had people on from California to the East Coast. I saw as I scrolled through names. So thank you for joining us. And if you have great programs, or you know somebody that's got a really unique program that you think others would benefit from, please let us know. I couldn't do this without the help of, like I said, our Grand Poobah, Gary Markham, who holds my hand through all this and helps me put all these things together. Gary, any final comments from you?
Everybody, just thanks for being here. Send in your ideas, what you'd like to hear about. We'll be glad to help marshal all this through everything we do. And so thanks for your help, and thanks for being here. Bobby, thank you. You're always a blessing.
Amen.
Yeah, I put my email in the chat. So reach out to me.
Awesome.
Thank
you so much.
Any way I can.
Stay safe out there.
Take care, everybody. Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Mhm.